In the early days of history, mankind was led into the future, blind and scared. Eventually, man got smart and began to understand his environment. He mastered fire, earth, wind, and water, and began the process of unearthing nature's powers and secrets. This brought about the first foundations of civilization, to where mankind would no longer be led blindly in fear, but instead would be guided by the hand of knowledge into a future that was built on the dreams and ambition of its people. So what happened? Where did we lose sight? When did we as a civilization lose control of our future? It is becoming apparent that the world is changing before our eyes. There is a war being waged in the minds of every individual on this planet, and most lay ignorant to even the concept. Whether you want to believe it or not, information has been weaponized. It is now being slung at you as bullets and arrows in the form of propaganda, disinformation, counter-narratives, and manipulated data analytics. It has no preference on race, creed, political affiliation, or gender. It only seeks to do one thing, and one thing only, and that is place you, the individual, in a state of mental slavery. This slavery is a controlled position where your actions and influences are predicted, anticipated, and expected through a guise of five-dimensional chess moves being played out on a global stage. Is it really that hard to believe? Go look around you. In every corner of your city, people cower in fear from going to the grocery store. People tremble as you approach out of a conditioned fear that some invisible, microscopic entity will steal their health and their life. Masks have become the new norm. We see them on TV shows from Netflix to Amazon, filmed months ago, but yet there they are, being portrayed as something normal in society. And social distancing, well, this is becoming a common theme. Our world went from a healthy socioeconomic position with the rebirth of the middle class and the rising up out of poverty of many others, to a dying infrastructure that has seen the foundation of small and family-owned businesses crumble at the attrition of customers, clients, and consumers. And then we have the lack of motivation to infuse capital at the hands of lawmakers who would rather use this crisis as a political agenda in an attempt to secure power in November. Republicans and Democrats alike, we should expect more from our elected officials. We should expect more from those that we instill trust with in our consent to be governed. They are there to support us and keep this country alive, yet in times of peril, over and over, we have seen them utilize their position for personal greed and the gain of political power. And what for? All this for a virus? Think about this logically. Have you ever been to the grocery store, office, doctor's office, emergency room, or anywhere for that matter, where someone was sick? Maybe they had a cold or the flu, or they were coughing or sneezing. Did you ever think to put on a mask? Did you actually get sick? So why now? Do you know anyone who is healthy that got COVID-19? Why all of a sudden is it that as this virus spreads throughout the world, the numbers of its actual infection rate, the death toll, are being manipulated in real time? Some of us actually question if there is actually a virus at all, or maybe this is just some mass psychological warfare campaign being orchestrated against the world in a ploy to seize power and control once and for all. But ask yourself, why manipulate the numbers to make the illness appear worse than it actually is? Can you see what is happening here? It is no lie that politicians, world leaders, globalists, and other influential and powerful world figures seek to centralize political, economic, and governmental powers in this world. We can call it a conspiracy theory all we want, but at the end of the day, it is quite apparent. It is a conspiracy, and it is no longer a theory. We know this because for the longest time, these globalists have planned and orchestrated their agenda in the public domain, telling us, the people, exactly what they were going to do. The irony of it is that we allowed them to do it while we mindlessly absorbed their gentle distractions. So with that in mind, Think for a moment about all the things that have happened in the last few months relating to quarantines, COVID-19, coronavirus, lockdowns, pandemics. Are there things to you that just do not make sense about this? Do you have questions that need to be answered? The WHO, China, and the media downplayed the actual virus in the beginning, claiming at first that there was no human-to-human spread. They made it appear as the virus was not contagious and less potent as we were led to believe. Then, after President Trump implements travel bans and restrictive measures, they immediately began hammering him in the media. Examples of Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco telling people to go out, visit stores, take part in commerce. From the Democrats to the WHO to world health experts, they all partook in this. Then, all of a sudden, like magic, the tone changed. As the numbers increased, real or not, the mainstream media narrative began to shift the focus on President Trump's coronavirus response. Instead of reporting that he was ahead of the game, they immediately changed tones and started attacking him on his response. Even so much that Democrat members of Congress began new impeachment articles against the president. So let's be good, informed citizens and start asking the right questions. Why have the numbers been so inflated? Why has the mainstream media been so in line with the perpetuation of the inflated narrative and the politicization of the narrative? Why are the media organizations staging COVID-19 testing facilities, bringing in actors and not even testing them, then reporting it as news? Why have the hospitals been seemingly empty? Why is it that nurses, doctors, and other medical professionals are speaking out about this and then getting censored and suppressed by the media and big tech companies? Why is it that Democrat-controlled states like New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California seem to have higher infection rates, higher death rates, more strict restrictions on businesses, social distancing, and draconian orders that in every aspect infringe on your constitutional rights? Ron Paul, a former U.S. congressman, presidential candidate, and medical doctor, recently said that the virus is real, but the hype is fake. He said, and I quote, "People should ask themselves whether this coronavirus pandemic could be a big hoax, with the actual danger of the disease massively exaggerated by those who seek to profit financially or politically from the ensuing panic." So what is really going on? Well, let's think about this for a moment. To understand what in the world is really happening, we have to understand the right hand from the left hand, the magician and his tricks. But first, a disclaimer. Before you accept and believe anything I say here, I ask you to validate this yourself. It takes research, not Google searches, but research. Researching means going to the original source of the information and data and validating the claims and assumptions. Why am I asking you to do this? It is because at this moment there's a war on your mind and information is the weapon. All information should be questioned. All sources should be vetted. All interpretation should be internally analyzed and scrutinized away from foundational beliefs. Nobody, not even I, can show you the truth. No one can tell you or convince you of it. You must realize it yourself through the investigation with your own senses and intellect. If this is where I lose you, then I bid you farewell. This is not a journey for those wanting to be told what in the world is happening. Being an informed, free-thinking, and independent human being requires a certain level of effort and responsibility. To defeat any enemy takes knowledge. Knowledge is the root of all power. Therefore, to understand what lies at the bottom of this rabbit hole, you must first seek the truth within yourself. At the entrance to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, there was written, Gnosis te ipsum. When translated from Greek means to know yourself. This is important in every aspect of life, for it is you that holds the truth. There are only two perceptions of truth that can be understood within the universe. The first is the absolute. It is unknowable and incomprehensible. It is truth in its totality. We can only know it through relationship and discovery, but never fully comprehend. Self-evident truth comes about through internal investigation, through the weeding out of the garden of the mind. by eliminating and reducing the conditioning that has enveloped your perception of the world. This happens when you question your beliefs and the foundations of who you truly believe yourself to be. It is a necessary rite of passage for one to shed themselves from the illusion of the conditioned reality. Right now, in this world, there is a battle waging to seize certain levels of power and authority over the future and course of humanity. I know it sounds crazy. Every time I think of it, it sounds crazy. That is because society, culture, entertainment, and the media have conditioned us to believe that to be so. But does it really seem that far-fetched? That secret government projects like MKUltra, Operation Mockingbird were allowed to happen, and yet we are foolish to believe that something like that isn't continued to this day. Is it hard to believe simply because your mind cannot fathom the extent of the worldwide criminal integration? That somehow a sophisticated group of criminals rose to the top echelons of banking, finance, technology, religion, politics, media, entertainment, academia, and infiltrated every aspect of our life. They have undermined our sovereignty, stolen our wealth, destroyed our heritage. They have torn the fabric of culture and society. They have poisoned the food, water, and air, and now they are battling for absolute control of your mind, actions, words, and influences. We tend to look at criminals as petty, unorganized, and always slipping up and making mistakes. We see them as lower echelons of society or as greedy and power-hungry individuals working alone towards world domination. The truth is anything but. They are smart, intelligent, cunning, strategic. They are masters of human psychology and understand emotional manipulation. They design the world economies and are the architects of every aspect of control within your life, including the illusion of choice. It was a long time ago when the world was not so connected that they began their agenda, that they formed pacts and secretive groups, that they compartmentalized themselves, their skills, knowledge, resources, and influence, so that, if ever discovered, the entity as a whole would remain intact and operational. They then set out and infiltrated every aspect of society, starting with the social clubs, academia, fraternities, brotherhoods, and any other collaborative network that was based on camaraderie. They recruited, blackmailed, provided benefit, and integrated new tentacles into their integrated web of deception. Eventually, they rose to the top of social structures, then business, politics, medical communities, finance, and everything else. The players in this game have been at it for a very long time. Their stage is the world, their game pieces are you and I, and their strategies are built within economics, politics, entertainment, culture, and religion. If you are wondering where the battle lines stand and where we are at in this war, I can tell you from what we know and have seen so far that the good guys seem to be winning. Good guys meaning the ones who, from our opinion, are fighting for us. How can we be sure of this? Well, they're good people in this world who love their country, their way of life. Good, wholesome people who believe in the foundational principles of freedom and liberty. These are people who've served and continue to serve. They have been in the hierarchy and have not liked what they saw. They have worked their lives to fight it. Some have lost their lives in this battle. Others continue the fight. An interesting thing happened many years ago. At the time when digital technology was replacing the old analog control infrastructure of the world, we all became connected through information. The dawn of the internet, cell phones, and big data brought in with it the benefits of humanity being connected as a cyber organism, intercommunicating through our webs of emotion, intelligence, and curiosity. At the same time, this cabal funded, developed, and financed this digital foundation for their own sinister agenda, to control humanity financially, politically, and socially. It was with this infrastructure that the idea of an Orwellian-style society, modeled after the dynamics of communist China, would finally be implemented. From the words of David Rockefeller, whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution, it has obviously succeeded not only in producing more efficient and dedicated administration, but also in fostering high morale and community of purpose. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in human history. But see, something else happened here as well. This intricate web the cabal built had grown large and powerful. So large and powerful that they too got caught up in the web of this cyber organism of information. Their compartmentalized notes, meetings, and information exchanges now went digital. Their private exchanges and coordinations now broadcast over the realm of digital space. They too became slaves to the system of control. Luckily for us, the good guys, the patriots, made their moves when they did. Yes, I am introducing you to Q, or what is known as QAnon. What or who Q is will be discussed at a later time because honestly, we really don't know. For now, just understand that Q provides us, the patriots, the Anons, with crumbs of information, intelligence, pertaining to past, present, and future events, happenings, occurrences, scenarios, possibilities, all arranged, disclosed, and presented out of order for reasons of security and validation. To make it simple, Q is a group that we'll just call the Guardians of Intelligence. Most likely, from our theories, they are a group of high-level senior military leaders and other patriots in positions of control and power who seek to free humanity from this digital slavery and end this plan of world domination. I know this sounds like something from out of a movie, and trust me, the further down this rabbit hole you go, the more it will be presented as such to your mind. But right now, the world is in a very dangerous place and we need your help. The battle is raging on. It is far from over. We see that the power structure of this cabal has been weakened and quite possibly on the retreat. Although right now in the world there is this invisible enemy, as it has been called, the virus, the pandemic. Originating from a Chinese lab, funded by the World Health Organization, US taxpayers through the National Institutes of Health, and privately through proxy organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It is clear that there is something off about this virus. It is incredibly evident that whatever it is, the media, world players, and certain political parties are trying to cover it up in real time. Not only cover it up, but also use it to their advantage. Think for a moment about who would benefit the most from a pandemic. I know this is hard to comprehend, that on a global stage a group seeking power would go to the extent to release a bioweapon or just to propagate through psychological warfare the idea that a highly contagious, deadly, and infectious virus was spreading. But ask yourself, is it really so crazy? Henry Kissinger addressed the Bilderberg Group in Evian, France on May 21st, 1992. He said, "Today, Americans would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will pledge with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government." Human history is filled with stories of war and global domination. Whether in the name of God's belief, power, or land, it is right there, staring you in the face. What makes now any different? Because we are so civilized? Or maybe that we are so technologically advanced? Human nature has evolved in recent years, that is true. Although that evolution doesn't remove the desires, ambitions, and underlying aspects that make us who we are. We are still the same species we were 1,000 years ago. It is just now we are more connected and have more highly efficient ways of killing each other. So the question is, would this cabal, if they exist, have the intent and ability to do such a thing? From what we have seen, they control the media, entertainment, high levels of government, bureaucracy, certain factions in academia, in the medical communities, in various state and local governments. So yes, absolutely, the ability exists. That is for sure. Well, what about the intent? We do not need to disclose the crimes of this cabal. That is apparent, and there are countless documentaries out there just about that. What I will show you is the current crimes that are about to be made public from the last US president's administration. The players in power positions believed so strongly that they would win the 2016 presidential election that they were sloppy in covering their tracks the last 8 years. We know this because we have seen the tracks released into the public domain. Certain releases like the DNC email hack, Clinton email scandal, Benghazi, Uranium One, Fast and Furious, to name a few. But see, those in power control the media so well that it was not a concern that any consequences would come from this sloppiness. The whole foundation was bought and paid for, from elections to the media. That was until somehow, whether by the will of the people, divine intervention, or some unknown way, they lost power and control. And just like that, now they had to begin the process of covering their asses, removing a duly elected president, just so they could regain power once again and hide their crimes, corruption, and the globalist agenda from the world. They quickly began perpetuating fake narratives, disinformation, leaked fake intelligence. They worked to set up the president, his staff, family, and anyone else they could use as leverage. They called in all favors and assigned all assets. It all started when members of the Obama administration's Department of Justice sought secretive FISA court approvals for the surveillance of Carter Page, a Trump campaign advisor. The Obama DOJ was alleging that Carter Page was colluding with Russia, so much that they had extended the surveillance 3 times. Now, the original basis of all this arose through a CIA assessment presented by John Brennan and the Clown Company that was soon validated and approved by FBI counterparts. Then the addition of the dossier produced for the DNC and paid for by Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, now known as the Steele dossier, named after the former British MI6 spy Christopher Steele, who produced the content in the dossier. The problem and sloppiness from the Obama administration officials begins here. None of these government officials bothered to tell the FISA court judges that the warrant requests were based on a dossier that was purchased by a political competitor and had already been verified through the highest levels of the FBI as nothing more than Russian propaganda. This then evolved post-election into the Mueller investigation, which, after 3 years and over $40 million of U.S. taxpayer monies, found that the president and his campaign did not collude with Russia. The investigation ended with 2 of Trump's campaign associates and friends being indicted on unrelated charges. 12 Russian hackers indicted on hacking the 2016 U.S. presidential election, and then the former General Michael Flynn fiasco. The problem here? The Russian hackers, which were being blamed for the Guccifer hacks, DNC hacks, WikiLeaks leaks, countless other hacking attempts on top U.S. officials, and the hacking of the voting machines in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, well, they decided to show up and fight the charges. And they won in court. The DOJ dropped the charges. So what about General Michael Flynn? He has been accused of lying to FBI agents pertaining to a phone call with the Russian ambassador Kislyak. The problem, which many were introduced to in late April and early May of 2020, was that unsealed documents showed that General Michael Flynn never lied to the FBI and that the FBI agents who interviewed him believed he was telling the truth. These documents show a trail of evidence that actually exonerate Michael Flynn and show a deep level of corruption and weaponization of the Obama DOJ, intelligence agencies, and even the Obama White House. These revelations, along with declassified documents from Acting Director of National Intelligence Grinnell, show that the direction of the spying of the Trump campaign, the smearing and setup of Michael Flynn, were coordinated at the highest levels of the Obama administration and headed by President Obama himself. These crimes are that of treason, sedition, and collusion at the highest levels. This was a coup to overthrow a duly elected President of the United States of America, to undo the votes of millions of Americans. So why did they do it? Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Pandora's box has not even been opened yet. These crimes were simply a procedure for the cabal or deep state to try to regain power within the United States. They got caught. And over the last 4 years, they've been trying to stop and suspend the investigations into their criminality through the use of every distraction they could muster up. They brew social dissent through media, Hollywood. They create instability within racially diverse social cultures. They utilize the economic machine and global powerhouses to manipulate financial markets that produce wealth transfers, losses of jobs, and unstable economic markets. They call in their covert assets through programs such as MKUltra and set up what we know of as false flag operations. They blatantly lie and produce propaganda to smear and tarnish the image of their competition. They rig the voting systems by taking advantage of loopholes and validation. All this because the extent of their real crimes makes treason look petty, and they will do anything to regain power and cover this all up. What do we know about the crimes they are hiding? Well, here are a few questions for you to ask yourself. What is the most profitable market in the world when it comes to trade? Why does the United States give billions of dollars in aid to foreign countries? Why, after the global economic collapse in 2007 to 2008, did China come out almost unscathed and with surpluses of capital? And then in the US, certain regulations were changed to allow them to invest in US infrastructure, power, and technology. Why were certain large abortion clinics allowed to sell fetal tissue, organs, body parts throughout the world from aborted babies? Why was there a sharp and dramatic increase in the number of opiate-related addictions and deaths from 1997 to 2020? Why is it that all of a sudden, socialism is the new cool thing in the United States? After World War II and the Cold War, endless battles have been fought to protect and preserve the Constitution of the United States. But for some apparent reason, socialism is being pushed within the grade schools, high schools, colleges as a solution to growing social inequality and injustice, of which the ideas surrounding and actual events occurring pertaining to social inequality and injustices are merely a propaganda and disinformation campaign that have been aimed at our children, are weak, and are misguided. Our society has become weaponized through the use of information to hide us from the truth. We live in a world where choice is but an illusion. The truth is that we are slaves, that our minds exist in a prison of disinformation, propaganda, weaponized social constructs, all designed to feed the illusion of freedom while the actual integrity of our liberties are slowly chiseled away by those who care not for us. Do you ever wonder about the flow of money? How US taxpayer dollars flow overseas in the form of foreign aid? Then that money is used by those host countries to fund projects, military, and other things. Have you ever wondered why NGOs exist in all these countries? Have you ever thought about how these NGOs receive billions of dollars of this foreign aid and then right back to Washington, D.C. they go, to the lobby, funneling this money right into the pockets of politicians? Did you ever wonder why a certain vice president's son was on the board of directors of various companies in Ukraine and China? I wonder which Ukrainian companies received the US aid for their energy projects. What if the largest wealth transfer in the history of the world was not occurring on Wall Street, but instead occurred at the helm of US politicians borrowing money at interest from a private organization, from foreign countries and entities, then embezzling that same money overseas into various slush funds that pay themselves their campaigns, that fund secret covert projects, their various charity organizations, and fund various criminal enterprises around the world? So the question now is, would this group, this cabal, that has operated for so long towards one goal of a centralized world government with a socialized political structure, that wants you silent, dumb, uninformed, and controlled at all levels, release a deadly and contagious virus, or propagate the idea of such in an attempt to regain power? Damn right they would. They wanted to stop Trump rallies, halt the massive economic machine that was adding wealth to every American, reverse the skyrocketing employment numbers, delay Chinese trade negotiations, shelter Biden from public view, find a way to delay the DNC primary, and create a plan to implement mail-in ballot voting. So what is their plan? Their plan is to regain political power by any means necessary in 2020. They will do it by creating an atmosphere of fear, panic, and instability in every aspect of society. They will create scenarios and events that will produce levels of dissent on both sides of the political barrier. They will divide every human being on this planet in an attempt to weaken us. Their objective is to have as many states as possible stay shut down, to keep businesses closed, and impact the economy in a highly negative way. They want local and state governments which work for them to implement draconian rules and guidelines that infringe on your constitutional rights. They want to spark a violent revolt. They want you mad, angry, violent, and divided. In order for a political move to be made and the Democrats to get a chance to steal an election in the fall, they need mail-in voting. California just initiated an executive order to do exactly this. Why is that a concern? Well, because for many years, mail-in ballots have been the question of voter fraud on a large scale, from local and state elections to national elections. 28 million mail-in ballots went missing in the last 4 elections. So how does it work? Very simply, there's absolutely no accountability for who is actually voting or if that vote is actually counted. Think about this. Your vote matters, right? It is in a sense an election currency. When you vote, you are giving forth your hard-earned and kept right to express and select who you wish to represent you. Yet, with a mail-in ballot, there is no proof or validation of this identity. As well, no confirmation of vote acceptance. I do not care if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Anarchist, Socialist, or whatnot. That should frighten every single one of you that believes in equal representation. How has past election fraud worked? Well, have you ever seen the memes or heard the rumors that your aunt or grandma who died 10 years ago will be voting Democrat this year? Well, those weren't really rumors. What about the rumors about using illegal aliens as votes? Or that votes are just forgotten about or thrown out due to incorrect filings? Well, these are not rumors. This is reality. Ask yourself for a moment, with all politics aside, would you want to be 100% sure that your vote was counted? Or would you rather leave it up to local, state, and federal officials and volunteers to whom you do not know their political stance, affiliation? And these are the same bureaucrats in every aspect that have run this country dry of wealth, resources, and fattened their pockets through the abuse of power and through corruption. So would you rather have an election process that 100% validates your identity and vote, or one that is highly questionable and has a history of fraud? And I know you're probably asking yourself right now, what the hell does any of this have to do with COVID-19 and the current state of the world? Well, listen to what Dr. Jeff Barkley has to say. He's a medical doctor and on the front lines of this illness. What he says makes sense, and whether you are Democrat or Republican, you need to wake up and understand what is truly being orchestrated here.
What if the experts are wrong? What if quarantining the healthy doesn't actually save lives? What if wearing a mask in public is not effective? My name is Dr. Jeff Barkey, and I'm here representing thousands of physicians across the country whose voices are being silenced because we don't agree with the mainstream media and the experts who are telling us what to do. Never in the history of this great republic have we quarantined the healthy. Never in the history of this great republic have we told churchgoers that it's illegal for you to exercise your First Amendment right of freedom of religion. Yet at the same time, it's essential to keep pot dispensaries open. Never in the history of this country have we been told that you can't go to church because it's non-essential, but you can go get an abortion because that's essential. Never before in our country have we let criminals out of jail, but we've told you you can't exercise your Second Amendment right and protect yourself by purchasing a firearm. When liquor stores are deemed essential, but your businesses are deemed non-essential, there's something wrong going on. This booklet, the Declaration of Independence and our U.S. Constitution, was never designed to restrain the people. It was designed to restrain.
Let's be logical here and put some thought into what is happening. The top 5 allies to the United States in intelligence, known as 5 Eyes, produced an intelligence dossier that was leaked to reporters. This report states that the COVID-19 virus was released from a level 4 Chinese virology lab in Wuhan, China. This has since been corroborated by U.S. intelligence, the President, and the Secretary of State, although everyone still claims this was not intentional. Now, when we start looking back at all this, it starts to make sense why China initially was falsely reporting the numbers and working very hard to cover this up prior to January 2020. We know that the deep state, including high-level Obama administration officials and former President Obama himself, were trying to cover up their past crimes. Is there a way to link COVID-19 to their attempts to cover things up? What if they knew that the impeachment trial in the Senate was going nowhere? So would they try to delay it, to buy themselves time and produce a narrative that could stop the public focus on their crimes and potentially set the stage for the November 2020 power grab? Do you remember the controversy over Nancy Pelosi delivering the articles of impeachment to the Senate? Why did she delay so long? What was she waiting for? Would it surprise you that on January 15th, the day Nancy Pelosi delivered the impeachment articles to the Senate, was the same day that the first U.S. coronavirus patient landed in the United States? Now, we have to remember, the Democrats are in the midst of the largest political scandal in the history of politics. The Obama administration illegally spied on Americans, political competition, and elected officials, weaponizing the intelligence community, and then tried to actively cover it up when they lost an election. The Democrats and the deep state not only have been corrupt in the sense of weaponizing the intelligence community for political and monetary gain, but also were in collusion with China to centralize power in the United States. Now, I know this is hard to understand and believe for the most part, but try to wrap your head around who has benefited the most from the last 30 years of negotiations with China.
And I have a very special connection with Shanghai. As mayor of San Francisco a long time ago, I had the honor of establishing a sister city relationship with Shanghai. It was the first sister city relationship between a United States and a Chinese city. And to this very day, I remember Mayor Wang Daohan very well, and Jiang Zemin and Mayor Zhu Rongji, two of which, both Jiang and Zhu, became president and premier, respectively, of the country. The relationship, though, yielded tremendous economic and cultural benefits, and that's been true over the past 30 years. I know this new office will build on the powerful and unique partnership between California and China. So thank you again as you make this the century of the Pacific.
So, what is their next move? We see the deep state crumbling, declassified documents are being released and showing the extent of their corruption. We're beginning to see that China, Iran, and various proxies were integrated into the scheme to dismantle the United States Constitution so that the world elites could finally usher in a new world order they had been trying to build since the inception of their plan. As the days go by and more becomes exposed on the federal level about the crimes of the former administration, bad actors in business, finance, and foreign countries, there is still one level of corruption that the deep state is heavily integrated in that you and I must unite to defeat. See, they want us divided. They want us weak. Divided, we pose no threat to them. They understand that if they attack our personal freedoms and liberties, that we will react with anger, fear, and impulse. They need a reason to shift the narrative, to create dissent, to produce mass protests and violence. They need an unstable political climate where they can push for an armed revolution. This starts for them on the state and local levels. You are the target, and medical tyranny is the bullet. Congressman Rush introduced a bipartisan bill to fund a $100 billion coronavirus testing and contact tracing effort. This is known as H.R. 6666. And what this bill does is it authorizes the Secretary of Health and Human Services to award grants to eligible entities to conduct diagnostic testing for COVID-19 and related activities, such as contact tracing through mobile health units and, as necessary, at individuals' residences and for other purposes.
We are beginning a program today And it's a pilot program which will certainly grow into something larger and larger, and that is a community contact tracing program. We've done contact tracing all along. That a contact is a person who's been exposed to someone that we document to have the COVID infection. When we find someone who has a COVID infection, those people are immediately isolated. But we also work with them to figure out who their contacts were. But the purpose of this program is to bring on people. We're going to start with 10 people. We may bring on up to 50 or even more as the program grows and as we see the needs for it. As we do more testing, we will find more and more people who have COVID-19. And again, we'll isolate every one of them, and we will find every one of their contacts, and we will make sure that they stay quarantined, and we'll check in with them every day.
They want you and I to react to this. We all know that this bill will never pass the Senate or the President. Most likely, they'll try to push this funding through the next coronavirus stimulus bill. Although, they really don't need to. As you see here, states reserve the right to dictate public health emergencies, which they believe grants them the power to preserve public safety. We have seen it already. Governors, mayors, medical officials, local leaders, they close down churches and small businesses, yet alcohol and marijuana stores are deemed essential services. We are told to stay indoors and separate from neighbors. They arrest us in empty parks and for walking down the street. The implementation of fear is their weapon on the state and local levels. They will be implementing more rules, regulations, and guidelines. They will continue to use this virus as a method of tyranny on you and I. Their goal is to make us react. They want us angry, violent, and in masses. They want us to storm local and state government buildings with weapons in hopes that someone loses their control. They will have bad actors, Antifa, and others right alongside you. They will instigate a local revolution to bring about instability in the system and prompt martial law. This is their plan. They have one shot and one choice right now. They need you silent, quiet, and in fear in your house or locked up, and your local area locked down with military precision. They need gun owners identified and either arrested, confiscated, or dead. Then they will move on Washington and formulate their armed coup with their private armies. If you had nothing to lose, the support of a radical left ideology and followers, a small army, and we're about to have your whole existence decimated, what would you do? Go for the Hail Mary or take a knee? It is at this time in history that you and I are left with a choice. Will we stand united in the face of tyranny and oppression? Will we allow this radical and evil scourge to continue its reign within this world? Or will we rise up, united, with one voice, as one people, peaceful in our approach and representing the power of the consent of the governed? We have the tools in our arsenal to end this shutdown and medical tyranny today. We simply have to rise up with one voice towards those we gave our consent of power to and tell them to end this now, or we will remove our consent. The consent of the governed is the only foundation of power that exists in a free world. Any leader or politician that ignores their constituents in this regard will be committing political suicide. Nothing can stop what's coming. That means that the truth will be known and available to all. Therefore, a leader must comply with the will of the people. So how do we do this? Just as the problem lays in the local and state levels, we must utilize the power of our community to become victorious. The objective is to coordinate with existing groups that you already have connections with. Business networking groups, meetup groups, hobby groups, book clubs, fraternities, sororities, the utilization of technology, Craigslist, Facebook groups, sports teams. The first thing to do is connect with your local groups and start the process of organizing into different coalitions. The first objective would be to get businesses back open, to get people back to work as fast as humanly possible. Next is the removal of unnecessary health-related restrictions such as masks and social distancing. And lastly, we need to develop programs for integrating society back to a point of normalcy. People who have not been privy to the information that you are consuming here will be moving out of this traumatic event and will have certain natural fears to overcome with for the reintegration back into society. By developing programs and support groups, you will help them transition and hopefully get them to a point of understanding of what has really occurred. We must rise up and fight with our voice and the power of our intellect and unified spirit. We must let our local and state leaders know that we are the people and it is our will that they represent. If they fail to comply, we will move for immediate removal from office with recalls and legal precedent. We must remember, Attorney General Barr has reminded us, health officials, state and local representatives, that the Constitution is not suspended during a time of national health emergency. This means that any attempt to limit, infringe upon, or suspend your constitutional rights by local or state leaders can be quickly met with a lawsuit and a motion by the citizens for the immediate removal of that elected or public official. As well, criminal charges can be brought up and civil lawsuits can be filed. We must be smart, strategic, organized, and united. We must rise with one voice and an agenda to get people back to work, businesses back in operation, open the states for traffic, get the economy flowing, and most of all, get life back to normal. We knew this day was coming. We knew we could not sit as the silent majority and allow our inheritance of this beautiful and magnificent country to be laid waste. This country, this world, it's our responsibility. Each one of us has a role to play. We are all human beings on a human journey. We are all equal in ambition and desire and should never be limited by those who seek to control us. We are united, moving forward as one race into the future, brought together not by that which makes us similar, but instead by our uniqueness, our passions, our dreams. We are united as one people who all understand that it is our differences that make life beautiful and the world a special place. We do not need rulers and dictators to give us solutions. We are the creative ones. We are the ones who are innovative. All the solutions to every problem we face exist right here in the minds and curiosity of each and every human being on this planet. There is not one thing we can't accomplish when we rise up, united with a common purpose, goals, and ideas of the future. For far too long, humanity has been sleeping from the poison of the serpent's apple. We bit into a lie and got drunk off of its sweetness. We let our guard down. We invited in the devil and forgot that he was ever here. He danced with us and fed us his bread. Our stomachs became full, our eyes attached to the screen of illusion, and our ears followed the music away from the truth. This revolution is not one of politics, religion, or ideology. It is one of awakening, of consciousness, of coming into being. Humanity is awakening from a giant slumber, a drugged sleep where we were abused, suppressed, and held back. When we win this war on our minds, and yes, we will win this war, the whole world will change. Your reality will shift. It'll be like the light of a new day, a day we have all waited for and anticipated. We have all felt it, burrowing deep inside of us like a seed waiting to burst through the sun-laid spring ground. But it all starts right here, right now, with you and a choice. Are you ready? And so it begins.